going to reach a point where it's not an option on whether you personalize your marketing and your actually branding campaigns or not. It's going to be, if you're not utilizing, you're actually going to be left behind, and you're not going to be able to tap into and get the attention of your consumers on the level, on the way that other people that are using personalization are able to do.
The client acquisition cost is going to keep going up, and it's going to go up faster than inflation. So your ability to have a lifetime value like really high allows you just to dominate your space.
As your consumers are bombarded with more and more options and choices, the brands that they want to interact with and the people that are going to get them to move through the sales process are going to be those that are able to tap into that personalization and spark their attention where other brands cannot. 2025 marketing trends you absolutely need to be aware of. In today's episode, we are going to dive into trends that are transforming the marketing space. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a marketing manager, or even looking to scale your business, you absolutely need to be aware of the following trends because they are going to transform how we interact, how your consumers interact, and of course, your profitability, revenue, sales, leads, all of that good stuff. In today's episode, we're going to dissect 5 things specifically that are going to transform the marketing space in 2025. So lock into this episode and let's dive in. One of the big transformations that we saw in 2023 and 2024 was the utilization of AI. And now you may think, okay, yes, AI, for sure, it's going to be transforming. But what I want to talk about specifically that is going to be a 2025 trend is integrating AI into all parts of the marketing and sales and even business process. We saw the rise of platforms and tools like ChatGPT, where a lot of marketers are utilizing AI for creating content, captions, a lot of things that are written. But what we're going to start to see in 2025 is AI being adopted into all parts of the business, right? With the introduction of so many new tools in AI that can help you do things better, more efficient, faster. Those that actually stay ahead of AI adoption, not just in content and in writing, but in all parts of their business are going to be the ones that stay ahead and actually stand out.
There's not one area of our business that we're not using AI. This was a couple years ago. We actually had our team, for an entire quarter. Hey, what is one, how do you make your role better with AI? That was a call to action we had for our team and a focus that we had for a quarter. And it's just kind of continued ever since. Every area of the business is utilizing AI, from operations to the marketing to our outreach to our sales process is literally made 5 times more efficient by using AI in every area of our sales process and our lead generation process. That it's not just creating more effective, AI in marketing isn't just about creating more effective copy or more personalized copy. It's really able to produce a very human outcome in way less time. You still have to QC, you have to quality control the bot. You have to make sure you're giving the AI the right prompts and the right instructions and the right information. And you still have to make sure that you're quality checking it on the other side. That said, there's your ability to create and test messaging and copy and come up with creative ideas and make your whole process more efficient is unbelievable. And you do have to start, if you're uncomfortable with it, you do have to start small, start getting engaged with it, start interacting with it. But if you're not, I'm sorry, but if you're at a point right now where you're not adopting it, you're going to be dead. And if you're an employee, you are going to absolutely need to be the kind of employee that's leveraging AI in all your roles. It's going to be a very valuable part of what employees are going to do. And if you're a company, you've got to make sure you're using AI in all the different areas of your business. Because if you're not, and you're coming up against a company like ours that is, you're going to not be able to compete. You're not going to be able to keep up with margin, with efficiency, with personalization, with scalability with companies that are. So 100%, you got to keep up to that. It's not as hard as you think. There's plenty of podcasts out there that will keep you up to date on AI and the tools that you can, listen. Hey, I'm going to commit to once a week or twice a month. I'm going to listen to a podcast episode on the most recent news for AI. And that's one of the easiest ways to keep up on AI, but you actually got to get your hands dirty and in it and start playing around with the tools. And once you start playing around with the tools, you get hooked.
Yes.
I see how this makes my job much more efficient.
Absolutely. So asking yourself the question, how can I utilize AI in all different parts of your role? Whether it is, like you're mentioning, copywriting, that's the easiest place to get started. But I mean, there's even adoptions in things like data analysis for marketers, right? How you're looking at your data, performance of different campaigns, starting to utilize AI in the data arena where AI can actually analyze and go through large data sets to be able to give you the most important information, finding ways and areas like that you can start to integrate AI beyond the traditional using ChatGPT.
Yep.
ChatGPT is just one of thousands, I want to say like thousands of tools that are out there that utilize AI to actually produce a certain outcome. So we're going to start to see more AI utilization in unconventional ways in the marketing space. And of course, as a marketer, as a business owner, making sure that you're staying on top of those trends because they will completely transform how you do business, but also just unlocking how do you do things more efficient? How can you do things faster? How can AI help you produce a better output? Asking yourself those questions and beginning to look at those and research those tools can accelerate you in doing better and actually keeping up in 2025. And you touched on personalization, which is the second trend. We're actually going to start to see more customization and personalization in how brands market to their customers. And so one of the benefits of AI is the ability that it has to personalize interactions, whether it is through an email or a message, and actually making it hyper personalized. But this is also thinking about beyond just market segmentation, right? Beyond like splitting up your customers into small businesses, mid-markets, and different demographics and psychographics. We're going to see a lot in 2025 of personalization because that's what your consumers are going to be actually looking for and paying attention to. Is the company speaking to me in a personalized way? Do they understand my needs? Do they understand actually what I'm looking for? And so that is going to be a trend that we're going to see heighten in 2025 and beyond.
When you think about people, when they're looking to buy something or you're trying to get their interest to sell them something, the more they can feel like it is for them, the better. So we think on the most basic level, hey, it would be human. We sell this thing for humans, right? And then you could go down to, we sell this thing for people in the United States. Oh, I live in the United States. Or if you've ever seen those advertisements, attention, Florida citizens, the more specific you can get. And then now if I go into their industry segmentation, hey, if you're in the marketing industry, if you're in the marketing industry, then if I can get it's like the more personal you can get, the more you can make it feel tailored down to them. So you can get down into to the age groups, and you can get down into what their careers are. But then what AI allows us to do at scale is create a personalized, literally for that person. Like I can, if I'm doing an email list, a mass email list, I can set up AI automations that will personalize the first sentence to every single one of my recipients. It can look up their age, their demographics, where they live, the companies they work at, and autopilot to my whole newsletter, send out a list that first sentence is personalized to them, and it can feel like a personal letter to them, even though the rest of the email is just a standard email. And so I think understanding how to use personalization, allows us to create influence where they feel like, wow, this message is just for me. And it's the same concepts like I was saying before, marketing people have been doing this forever, and they know the more specific you can get to them, whether it's their age, their demographic, where they live, groups they're a part of, associations they're a part of, it makes a huge difference in marketing. But when you're able to do it like personal, like information about them as a person, your results get much, much higher.
Yes.
And if you don't have that, and everybody, even when it does get adopted and everybody's using it, you're going to see a huge decline in your current results.
Correct.
And KPIs.
Yes, it's that big notion of if you're not using it, you are actually going to be left behind and your results are going to start to decrease. So it's going to reach a point where it's not an option on whether you personalize your marketing and your actually branding campaigns or not. It's going to be, if you're not utilizing, you're actually going to be left behind, and you're not going to be able to tap into and get the attention of your consumers on the way that other people that are using personalization are able to do. So keeping that in mind as a 2025 trend, AI, personalization at scale is going to be something we see a lot more of.
And it's either right now we're at a point where either you're fast to adopt new ideas and it's like a gold rush. Like you get on that front end of it where like you're constantly reaping the rewards of this new technology, and then the next new technology, and you're able to stay on top of that. Or you're going to be somewhere in the middle where like you're adapting it but not super fast, so you are getting benefits from it. Or you're going to be on the tail end where you're resisting it and you're constantly just in this place where it's like now you're reacting because your results are down and you've got to react. It's like you don't want to be chasing right now, especially when it's so easy to be the person on that front end constantly being able to tap into the gold rush, which is these new technologies making personalization at scale more effective, which is just proven, and it's been always been proven, and it'll continue to be proven to produce better results and get you more results for the money you're investing 100%.
So ask yourself the question, how can I utilize personalization in my marketing and sales campaigns so that you can actually stand out? So the third trend that we're going to see in 2025 around marketing is customer lifetime value. So as acquisition costs are going to continue to go up and up, we've already seen it this past, I'm going to say 2 or 3 years where acquisition costs are skyrocketing. Brands that put a focus on customer lifetime value are going to be the brands that actually keep up. And we're going to see a lot of shift in companies focusing more on how do we market and sell to our existing customers so that they're spending more with us, actually increasing the lifetime value of one customer versus solely focusing on that first sale.
You know, I think about it, what we do in the B2B lead generation space, where we could send one meeting, say it's with the CMO of a, $500 million company. We could send that to one client, and they turn it into a $50K contract. I could send that same meeting, that same person, to another one of our clients, and they could turn that into a $1 million contract or a $6 million lifetime value. And so when you think about the best way to compete with rising ad costs, with rising client acquisition costs, which it's not gonna stop. It's gonna get more and more and more expensive to acquire clients. The more you can focus on how do I have a product, how do I have value that I can give to my client, it's so like that I have a really big lifetime value, that's going to allow you to spend whatever you want to get a client. Too many people, they're on that bottom side of the equation where they're just constantly fighting their margins, going, okay, we have to keep our client acquisition cost at this point. Well, guess what? Inflation's happening really quick, and it's been happening really quick. So the numbers you had for your client acquisition 6 months ago are different than they should be now. Like as inflation goes up, so your client acquisition cost is going to go up, and client acquisition cost is going to keep going up, and it's going to go up faster than inflation. So your ability to have a lifetime value like really high allows you just to dominate your space, because guess what? If I'm making an average of $1 million on a client, and you're only making an average of $50,000 on a client, I could spend $50,000 to get that client and still be profitable. If you're only making $50K off a client, you can't spend that much money to get the client. So if we're competing in the same space, I am going to saturate that space, and it's going to be very hard for you to compete with me because I can outspend you all day. And so that's such a critical component, is stop focusing on how do I get my client acquisition costs just a little bit lower, because it's going to keep getting higher and higher, and focus more on how can I make my client value or lifetime value get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
So good. So it's both on like the product side or the service side, right? Determining how you can increase that customer lifetime value, but also on the marketing side, it's how are you marketing to your existing customers? What do campaigns look like to ensure that you're actually retaining clients and upgrading them, right? Yeah. So there's going to be a lot that we see in terms of trends of marketing and selling to existing customers, yes. That internal marketing, as you're mentioning, to actually boost that customer lifetime value. So as a business owner, as a marketer, if you're watching this, finding ways that you can market and sell internally, yes. To your existing customer base. They may be introducing new products or services, or simply putting together very strategic, we mentioned personalized campaigns to actually get them to market, to sell, to retain and upgrade.
Fourth is just, it's getting noisier. As automation becomes easier and more accessible to everybody, as AI becomes more easy and more accessible to everybody, it's going to just continue to get noisier and noisier and noisier and noisier. And that's not just, that's going to be increasing at an exponential rate, because it's becoming exponentially easier to create noise, right? And so for you to be able to stand out in that noise is going to be absolutely critical. And I know, Cindy, you're on the back end with our B2B clients, cutting through that noise, and it's gotten incredibly noisy. How do you think about cutting through that noise in 2025? What that's going to look like to be able to actually stand out in this? It almost seems impossible for some people, but our team's able to do it incredibly well.
Yes, it goes back to knowing your customer on a really deep level. And it's not just, we've mentioned this in previous episodes, like the demographics, the psychographics, understanding the pain points, the challenges, the desires of your ideal prospect, but it's taking it that next step further, right? Like the deeper level. It's understanding like the personalized of that specific prospect, what keeps them up at night? What are their motivations in their role? Understanding things about their personal life that maybe you could integrate into the sales process. And as we were mentioning, where AI comes into play is we're able to understand customers on such a deep level utilizing AI, which we haven't been able to do before, right? Like you can put somebody's name in a search in AI and be able to generate so much information about that prospect and actually customize how you reach out to them, how you interact with them. So it really goes back to that same point about personalization, but knowing that as the world gets noisier and noisier, and as your consumers are bombarded with more and more options and choices, the brands that they want to interact with and the people that are going to get them to move through the sales process are going to be those that are able to tap into that personalization and spark their attention where other brands cannot, right? So as it gets noisier and noisier, people are actually going to be blocking out a lot more and more because the space is just so noisy. So finding ways to cut through that noise, utilizing personalization, really knowing your customers, speaking directly to them, that's going to allow, when you send a customer a message or you show them a graphic, that your brand is going to stand out among all the other brands as well.
Yes.
And I think also part of that is your stamp as a brand, as a company. Like, is your consumer able to differentiate you from the million other people that do what you do, or do you just look and sound exactly the same, right? There's so many B2B lead generation agencies out there. But when somebody sees one of our messages or comes across something that's from Pima, they're able to differentiate, right? Because we have our uniqueness in the way we do things. So I think as a company, finding like what is that unique differentiator when somebody sees my brand or comes across with my brand, are they able to differentiate it from the million other people that do what I do? That's going to be super important in 2025.
There can be a little bit of like, I just want to make sure people don't feel confused. They're like, well, how do I do that? The biggest thing is look at what is being said out there, spend a little bit of time on what's being said, and then use AI to interpret that. Create a spreadsheet and say, here's what all my competitors are doing. And then you can use some simple AI prompts to say, hey, here's all the things and all the services that I do. And then you can put that in AI and say, here's all the things that all my competitors are doing. What opportunities do I have to differentiate? Go through a little exercise like that. And one of my favorite things to do when I'm using AI, say like a ChatGPT or something like that, is I go, hey, ChatGPT, I have this goal where I want you to do a competitive analysis with my competitors, and I want you to see my product, and I want you to help me create unique differentiators that can make me look, sound different than what's out there. What information do you need from me to make sure that you can do that job correctly? What questions do you have for me? And then ChatGPT will give me maybe 15 questions. I answer those 15 questions, and then you see. So I'm telling ChatGPT what questions they need to ask me to get the right information to help me create a differentiator. So that's something that we've done with some of the sales processes we're doing right now that really helped us create a few little subtle, unique differentiators that have made a big difference for sure.
So good. That's a great tip. Great tip.
Number 5 is be a first adopter. Very, very important right now, because when you look back on how technology has changed, there's been huge gaps. You could talk about things like mail. Mail allowed people to send mail to other people to sell them things. Then the printing press allowed you to do mail at scale. And then the phone allowed you to do cold calling. And then the TV allowed you to now put advertisements in front of people in their home. And the radio allowed you to start doing advertisements on radio, right? And then you just start thinking about moving forward to the internet allowed you to connect with other people on the internet. Social media allowed you to start messaging people through social media. Email allowed you to start messaging people directly into their inbox. These technologies made big changes, but if you start to look at things like automation allowed you to automate all of these processes at scale. What AI is doing is it's allowing you to personalize at scale. So when we look back at the history of marketing, when I think about like outbound marketing and sales specifically, from the printing to printing press to the phone, all these pieces, there were such big gaps in between when these technologies came out and when the next big technology came out. Right now, we don't have those big gaps. Right now, we have the big jumps and leaps in technology are very short now. You think about from the time when the internet came out in the 90s to having social media, to having automation tools just accessible, to now having AI accessible. The gap between the new technologies that make a big, huge quantum leap difference in your business, time-wise, they're getting shorter and shorter. So at this point in time, you have to be a first adopter. When the next printing press comes out, which is the next when the phone comes out, when all these technologies that are gonna, like, the modern day technologies are expanding so fast that if you're not adopting them and your competitors are, you're gonna get left in the dust. So again, like we were saying before, this is an opportunity for you to easily stay on the front end and for it to be a gold rush. If you're in the middle road where you kind of adopted a little bit late, you'll be fine. But if you're on the backside of this where you're not adopting, you're going to be constantly playing catch up and probably going to go out of business eventually. But it's very easy to do. As I suggested before, find some AI podcasts that are mostly around like keeping you up to date on what's going on in AI, or find a few blogs that like maybe send you a newsletter list. There's so many resources out there that can easily keep you up to date on the new technologies. And when you find one that you feel like you could apply to your company, or you see one like, oh, hey, how can I make my business a little bit more relevant or a little bit more efficient with this tool? Go play with it, test it out, and get your whole team involved. Have your whole team say, hey, if you see a new technology you want to play around with, let me know about it. We're happy to, pay for a trial and test it out.
I was so surprised this year as we were just exploring so many new AI tools, like how many tools are out there, first of all, and then second, how many of those tools you can actually utilize for so many different parts of the business. And so yes, we are talking about marketing trends, but it's also how you stay ahead in marketing is looking at what tools are actually available out there so that you can adopt, so that you can be better in your role and actually stay ahead of your competitors. So you'll be surprised when you start to do research on different AI tools that are available, on what technologies have been developed, even in your unique sector. You'll be so surprised. So start to have a look at those and start to adopt, as Tim is mentioning. And even if it's like dipping your toe in the water, just testing it out, you'll be surprised what is out there. And we don't have the luxury now with how fast things are moving and with how many just trends are coming left and right. You don't have the luxury of sitting back and waiting. You have to be on the forefront of making adjustments. You have to be on the forefront of adopting these technologies, or else you are going to get left behind. So those were the 2025 marketing trends that you absolutely need to be aware of to stay ahead of the curve in 2025. Make sure you go back, re-listen to that episode, take some notes if you need to. We want to make sure that you are equipped to dominate your industry in the new year. If you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you click that subscribe button. And if you are listening on audio, make sure you follow the show wherever you are listening. Remember, domination is not a destination, it's a way of life. Stay winning.